Hello everyone, Teen Games here, and today we're going to have a look at the Shadowpriest for 6.2 and how well they perform in Hellfire Citadel, which is the new raid. And this is not going to be a video where I hit a dummy for 10 minutes or show you guys one fight of the raid and go over how to do DPS on it. This is going to be a video where I show you guys quite some spreadsheets and some information that I found on the internet, and also some information that I have gathered and tested out from killing almost all the bosses in the raid. But mostly we're going to have a look at, for example, the BIS list for the different specs. We're going to have a look at also the stat priorities, of course, for the different specs, which kind of entwines with the BIS list. We're going to have a look at what talents you want to be using for every single fight, also depending on if you have 4-set or if you do not have 4-set for the tier 18. And we are going to have a look at how you pretty much want to be an above average DPSer for Shadowpriest this patch. So let's first go into checking the spreadsheet for how you want to be using your talents for the different fights if you do not have 4-set bonus yet. Alright guys, so as you can see we have a spreadsheet here, and this is absolutely going to be in the comment section below, listed as tier 17 for peace talent choice. And as you can see, all the fights where there are more than 3 adds, or well, more than 2 targets pretty much, so 3 or more targets, you want to be using the spec Auspicious Spirits and Cascade, of course. There are only 2 fights really that you want to be using Halo, and these are kind of optional. As you can see, Clarity of Power / Halo is viable, but best option if adds die within 30 seconds, of course. So on Shadowlord Iskar, he pretty much spawns like 7 or 6 adds or something, and they do have quite a lot of health, but for example, if you're doing normal and you have a really overgeared group, they die super quick, and Cascade is going to be not that great if they die within 30 seconds, as it says. So Halo is a better choice if they do die within 30 seconds, but if you can get 2 Cascades out, that is definitely better than a Halo. So it's kind of situational. Also for the Fellord Zagun, you can use Halo. I did try Cascade and it seems to be very equal, but a Halo is a tad better, so I would go with Halo for that, as it is a pure single target fight. And of course for Zagun you want to be using Clarity of Power, as it is 100% single target fight. The thing is, Clarity of Power is extremely affected by movement, so if you need to move just a tad in the fight, Auspicious Spirit almost passes by, and it could be a better choice. If you do have almost absolutely full BIS gear, but we're going to get into that a bit later, Auspicious Spirit could be viable, but we'll get into that in a minute. On Hellfire High Council, it is pretty much like the fight Iron Maidens from Blackrock Foundry. As there are 3 targets and you want to be using Auspicious Spirits, as I said earlier, if there's 3 targets you always want to be using Auspicious Spirits. You will have so many orbs and so many global cooldowns to apply dots and stuff that you don't really ever have time to use Insanity. So in this case you just want to be using Shadow Fiend instead, and it is the only fight you want to be using Shadow Fiend on if you do not have the tier 18 set bonus. But if you want to take an extra look at this, this is very accurate on what kind of talents you want to be using if you do not have tier 18 set bonus yet and are still using the tier 17 from Blackrock Foundry. Now, if we're going to have a look at the talent choices for tier 18, we can look at this spreadsheet right here, and as you can see there are a few changes. Shadow Fiend appears more often in Archimon, the Manoroth, Xul Horak, I don't really know how to pronounce that. Hellfire is still the same, of course, and then Hellfire Assault is also Mindbender, or also Shadow Fiend. And the reason to why there are more of these now is because the Shadow Fiend is very boosted pretty much when you do get the 4-piece or actually the 2-piece. Both really affect it a lot, because it makes Shadow Fiend has a 20-second cooldown, and if you do have Mindbender it is going to be 100% uptime on it. When you do have your Mindbender up, you do get more multi-strike. So it is very beneficial to have it on these fights in particular. And yeah, you want to be using Insanity for all the other fights pretty much. On Hellfire Assault, as you see, you can see both the Mindbender and the Insanity. That means it's pretty optional. You can use both of them and it shouldn't matter that much. And it's the same on Xul Horak. Now for Clarity of Power, it is pretty much the same, I guess. On Iron Reaver, it's still single target, so you want to be using Clarity of Power. Cormac as well, and on Cormac, I don't really know how to pronounce that, but anyways, it is quite tricky because why you could be fooled into using Auspicious Spirits is because he does spawn hands that you know, have quite a bit of health, but they don't actually have that much health if you think about it. They do, when everyone stacks up pretty much and everyone does huge amounts of AoE, they die within a few seconds, even though they have quite a bit of health. The Auspicious Spirit spec won't be that good because maybe you have more Shadow Orbs to use on this particular moment or anything, but if you do stack up your Shadow Orbs in advance and then use Searing Insanity at the same time as the hand spawn and cascade, it is going to be more beneficial because your Clarity of Power makes your Mind Sear 40% stronger. So that is definitely better, and as there are no constant adds up, you want to be using Clarity of Power. So that's a main rule pretty much. If there are adds up for a very short amount of time, you want to be using Clarity of Power, because dotting them with Shadowward Pain with Auspicious Spirits to gain Shadow Orbs from it isn't really beneficial if they will just die so fast. And that is pretty much the whole concept of the Gore Fiend as well. As you see, you can use Auspicious Spirits, but if the adds die really quick, they do have quite a lot of health, of course. It's dependent on how well the people in the stomach do. If you do not know how the fight works, I'd suggest you to go check up a guide before watching this. But the Gore Fiend fight does have a lot of adds, but they can die really quick if you have a good group, and then Auspicious Spirits won't really do anything because you don't really get time to Shadowward Pain them and get your dots rolling and stuff. So Clarity of Power is definitely a good choice for Gore Fiend if you do not kill the adds, you know, super quick. So yeah, let's go over to the actual biz list and how you want to be gearing for 6.2. So to actually look at the biz list, we have to take a look at the stat priorities first, because I'm going to show you guys two different biz lists pretty much from different sites. Well, two from the same site and then one from another site, and I'm going to tell you guys why they actually show the different things, because they don't actually show the exact same things. So first off, for the Clarity of Power spec, if there's absolutely no movement at all whatsoever, Mastery is good, but as you can see here, if there's multiple targets or any kind of movement, Mastery is at the absolute bottom. And the reason to why this is pretty much is because Mastery is pretty much increasing your damage with the Mind Spikes and Mind Blast, and Mind Spikes is going to be a huge amount of your damage, and it's the same with Insanity. It also increases your damage with Insanity, and both the Mind Spikes and the Insanity cannot be used while moving. So pretty much when you're moving, your Mastery does nothing at all except for your Mind Blasts. So I mean, if for movement fights, Mastery is really bad if you choose to go with a Clarity of Power. But if it's 100% like a girl fight where you don't move at all, or don't move 99% of the fight, Mastery is definitely a good choice. For the Auspicious Spirit spec, crit is absolutely dominant, even over intellect and spell power. Crit is the best because every single time you crit with your Shadowward Pain, you get a Shadow Orb, and that is just crazy good. And that's why it's so good on 3 targets or more, because you will have a lot, like you will have almost unlimited Shadow Orbs if you have full Mythic gear, or maybe even full Heroic gear. So you will have a lot of Shadow Orbs if you can spam Shadowward Pain on stuff. Now, if we're going over to the actual biz list, I'm going to show you a biz list from summonstone.com. This is the Hellfire Citadel gear, and it is of course the 4-set bonus, and then this whole setup is kind of focused around crit. So this is an Auspicious Spirit biz list. You can go check it out in the comment section below. But if I'm going to, you know, choose any of these, as you can see, all of them have crit pretty much, all of the items. And haste is the secondary stat, so well, this doesn't have it, but it's pretty much to get the 4-set, of course. And for the trinkets, which is the important thing I want to show you guys, this one is a trinket that pretty much is a AoE ability, and it procs, you know, 5 times per minute or something like that. And it is really good for area of effect fights, which is the times you use Auspicious Spirits. And as you can see here, it's a single target and AoE. And this Repudiation of War is not a trinket you want to be using if you're going for Auspicious Spirit spec. I'm going to show you guys soon what trinket you want to be using if you're going for Auspicious Spirit spec. But this biz list is not my favorite one. I'm going to show you guys another biz list later. That is my favorite, but this is definitely one of the better builds if you want to be going for Auspicious Spirit spec. But instead of using the Repudiation of War, you want to be using another trinket that I'm gonna show you guys now. Okay guys, so this is the biz list I actually do prefer. You can choose here which one you want to see pretty much. It's of course going to be in the comment section as well. But this one right here, you can see all the stats they have chosen, and below here you can see every single item and what item level it is. But for this specific build, which is the Auspicious Spirits spec, if you do have of course 4-set, you want to be going for absolute full crit. Every single item is crit, and this is the other trinket that is your biz if you prefer to play Auspicious Spirits on some fights, of course. So this is the trinket you want to be using for Auspicious Spirit spec, definitely, over the Repudiation of War, with of course the Unblinking Gaze of Seath, which is an AoE trinket and works perfectly for Auspicious Spirits. But overall it is just a crit build with 4-set, with the exception of legs when it comes to tier pieces, because your main stats as a Shadow Priest is crit and then haste, so the legs gives crit and haste, so that's why you choose that as an off piece. Now for Clarity of Power spec, this is a build pretty much made for 0% movement. You just don't move at all. So I wouldn't really choose this spec, or well, this gear setup overall, because it kind of requires your guild to babysit you, and also for you to stand in some fire, I guess. Because if you would use this talent tree, it would be massive amounts of damage if you didn't move a single time during the fight, but if you do follow the tactics and move quite a bit, this is not the best. But as you can see, it's the Mastery Trinket that gives Intellect proc, and the Repudiation of War, and then just full out Mastery with Mastery enchants on every single item. And as I said earlier, Mastery is not that great if it comes to movement. Crit becomes like greatly increased in priority if you do have to move. So that is that. This is for Auspicious Spirit spec if you use one hand, and offhand if you just prefer that, I guess. But if you want to have an extra look at this, you can go into the comment section and just click the link. And the one called The Dream is just, you know, full out best in slot, Mythic Warforged and socket on pretty much all the items. This is unobtainable, I would say, unless the patch is like 2 years long or something and you're extremely lucky. But as you can see in the end game, the absolute best spec is Auspicious Spirits, and it can pretty much get you to 46% crit, which is an absurd amount, and no one is really ever gonna get this, I guess, because it's just unreachable with all the gems and the Warforged. But as you can see, the absolute best is 46% that you can get. But I think 30% or actually 25% raid buffed is almost where the line comes, where Auspicious Spirit spec is equal to Clarity of Power on a single target fight. But of course, if there's a really high movement fight, you want to be using Auspicious Spirits, and if it's a low movement fight, very low movement fight, you want to be using Clarity of Power. Just follow the talent spreadsheet that I have linked in the comment section I showed you earlier, and everything should be fine. Alright guys, I'm just gonna do a quick recap of the whole guide pretty much, and it's not gonna be that long at all, but I just want to show you guys a couple of paragraphs. You can read through them yourself, or you can just, you know, listen to me talk about them. So Clarity of Power, first off, is a really good single target spec, and it has really good AoE damage. What I mean by AoE damage is the pure 40% damage increase on your Mind Seer, and it can be really good if there's a lot of ads stacked into a pile. Now the second thing is it's bad on high movement fights, such as Council, where you have to dodge things all the time, and well, there's 3 targets up, and as I said earlier, Auspicious Spirit does excel a lot when it comes to 3 targets, so you wouldn't use Clarity of Power on this fight anyways, because of the pure fact that there are multiple targets up at all times. So at medium movement fights, single target fights, you want to be using Crit over Mastery. And the reason to why this is because, well, if you have to move and you don't really, you know, you can't really cast anything while you're moving with the Clarity of Power spec, because actually dotting stuff with Shadowward Pain can decrease your damage, because if it's a single target fight, of course, because when you Mind Spike a target with a dot on it, it will remove the dot and it will do 40% less damage, due to the fact that Clarity of Power spec does increase your damage with Mind Spike and various other abilities by 40% as long as you have no dots up on the target. So it is really important that you do not really apply dots to the main target that you're DPSing if you're still Mind Spiking it, keep that in mind. But at medium movement single target fights, you want to be using Crit over Mastery. And it is a really good swapping target spec. For example, I'm going to use Gorefiend. The Gorefiend fight is a pure single target fight until he goes into a kind of a phase where he spawns skeletons and all kinds of different spirits. And they don't have that much health, and dotting them with Auspicious Spirit spec can be good, but if the targets die really quick and you don't really get that many ticks out from your dots, it is just better to use your Clarity of Power spec and just cast a few Mind Spikes on it and burst it down quickly instead. Now for the Auspicious Spirit spec, it is a really good multi-target spec, and it's good when targets are spread out, due to the fact that you can just dot everything, and it doesn't need to be stacked at all. You don't need to Mind Seer a lot of targets if they're stacked into a pile, if they aren't stacked into a pile. Yeah, just overall really good, because you can just dot everything and you will get orb from it, no matter if they're stacked or not. Now it does excel at bosses like Council. Like I said earlier, you would use it for Council. It has 3+ mobs that are spread out pretty much all the time, but when stuff is stacked, you do of course have your Cascades for both specs. That is amazing to use, or your Halo, and then your Mind Seer. Your Mind Seer is of course better with the Clarity of Power, but on Council everything is spread out, so you don't really use Mind Seer that much. Only when he spawns, there are some some ghost ads he spawn, you can use it for those, but they are kind of spread out, so I'm not really sure if it does hit all of them. But you could use it there. But overall, Auspicious Spirit spec is really excelling at 3+ target fights that are up 100% of the fight, because of the due fact that you just get so many shadow orbs that you can just insanity pretty much 80% of the fight if you're not really unlucky. So the stat priorities are always Crit, Intellect, Spell Power and Haste. And the reason to this is just simply because Crit just gives you shadow orbs, and that's the whole point of the spec pretty much. You just get a lot of shadow orbs, and it also spawns these shadow apparitions that can hit from like 10 to 20k, all depends on your gear of course, but mine hit for that and I have about 700 item level, and of course they only spawn from crits, so that just makes Crit even better than Intellect and Spell Power. Of course you don't want to be using Agility gear if it has more Crit, but this is just the way it goes with Crit, Intellect, Spell Power and Haste, but it's just preferred if the item has Crit, Intellect, Spell Power and Haste as a second stat. Alright guys, so that's it for me pretty much on this guide overall. I hope you actually learned something from this. I definitely learned something from making this myself, and I hope you all get some damage increases to be seen. And if you do have any further questions, I do encourage you to leave a comment below asking me, because I will answer you as soon as I possibly can. And if there's something I happen not to know, I will definitely read into it directly and just answer it for you. So best of luck to all of you guys, and see you in the next video. Bye.